Is your customer success team stuck chasing NPS scores, putting out fires, and trying their very best to be strategic while still unsure of what actually drives renewals? You're not alone. Most customer success teams are chasing efficiency these days, but lose sight of the moments that actually make a difference. However, the teams that are doing this right are building intentional experiences, ones that make customers stay, expand, and advocate without burning out their teams. Hey there, my name's Yogesh, and I lead a customer success team at a startup in London. And after 5 years of being in this domain, here's what I've realized. The best customer success playbooks aren't complex, and you really don't need that many to move the needle. In this video, I'm going to be sharing a couple of key insights that I borrowed from Will Guidara's Unreasonable Hospitality, giving you some simple but powerful strategies designed to help make your customers stay, grow, and refer. Let's dive in. Let's first start with the wildest job title that I've ever heard of, not just at a restaurant, but in any organization. In this book, Will Guidara first shares what it's like to run a Michelin-starred restaurant, an environment where precision was everything, from how the glasses were placed to how the food was being prepared and cleared. It was a world built on perfection and control. But here's the first twist. In the middle of this highly controlled environment, Will actually encouraged radical creativity. He told his team to go dream, come up with wild ideas, and I'll give you the permissions and the resources to make them happen. And he meant it, even going so far as creating a role on his team called the Dreamweaver, named after the song by Gary White. This person's sole responsibility? It was to help the team bring their imaginative, thoughtful customer experience ideas to life. And here's what's key. This wasn't about flashy stunts. In fact, it was about more personalized, deeply human moments. For example, one time a family from Spain was dining at the restaurant. It started to snow, and snow was something that the kids of that family had never seen before. And you won't believe this part. The Dreamweavers actually ran out, bought sleds, and arranged for an SUV to take them to Central Park after dinner so the kids could play in the snow, creating a magical moment that they'll never forget. Another time, a couple dining at the restaurant had just gotten married at City Hall, but unfortunately their big wedding had fallen through. Understanding this, the server taking care of them discovered their wedding song through the conversations that they were having throughout the night. They then went and told the Dreamweavers, who then paced their dinner out slower so they were able to be the last guests at the restaurant. And then at the end of the night, the team turned an empty dining room into a spontaneous wedding reception and gave the couple their first dance to the tune of their wedding song. Believe it or not, these weren't expensive gestures, yet they created unforgettable memories because someone cared enough to imagine them. Now, in customer success, our version of a Dreamweaver isn't about sleds and first dances. SaaS is not fine dining. Still, that doesn't mean we can't adopt that mindset. Sure, we don't have the same emotional canvas, and some of us might not even have enough room in our teams for a dedicated Dreamweaver. That said, what we do have is data, automation, and playbooks. So, in my opinion, our version of a Dreamweaver isn't about grand gestures. It's about recognizing friction before a client has to call it out. It's about anticipating the needs and connecting the dots that they didn't even know were related, which means we're not just reacting to fires, we're proactively designing moments that move clients closer to measurable success. But this is important. There is one big trap to look out for, one that I have subconsciously fallen into many, many times. And I'll give you a breakdown of that later in this video. So the question next is, how do we operationalize this in customer success? One key move that you can make right now is to implement the Dreamweaver concept responsibly, is to structure a voice of customer process. It doesn't need to be fancy, so you can start simple, create a Google form for your customer success managers to fill out anytime they hear a spontaneous non-standard request from a customer. Funnel those responses into a spreadsheet or Airtable for review. Now, here's where it gets strategic. Set up a scoring system to prioritize which ideas should actually go to your product team. And here's a lightweight formula to get you set up. Have the frequency of requests and score them on a scale of 1 to 5 and multiply that by 3. Then look at the impact that feature suggestion is going to make for your clients. And again, score that on a scale of 1 to 5 multiplied by 2. And then look at the ARR or MRR of the client segment that's going to get affected. And again, score it on a scale of 1 to 5. and then plug it into the formula, which would look like this: frequency times 3 plus impact times 2 plus the ARR or MRR customer segment value. And adding all of that up gets you the priority score. Example, a feature request that might have come up 10 plus times, you give it a frequency score of 4. And if that feature request significantly improves onboarding by reducing it down to 2 weeks, the impact score is 5. And if it affects, let's say, enterprise customers, so as a group, they're going to be over $1 million in ARR, then the ARR affected segment value is going to be 5. So now you plug it into the formula. That looks like this, as 4 times 3 plus 5 times 2 plus 5 equaling a score of 27. Now, this final priority score is going to be on a scale of 1 to 30. So 27 is pretty much up there. Now you got a data-informed, customer-centered way to surface and champion ideas that actually move the needle. This way you're balancing out the strategic product impact with the touch of Dreamweaver magic. In addition to the Dreamweavers, what made the experience unforgettable at 11 Madison Park, the restaurant managed by the author? It wasn't just the food, it was the attention to detail and the subtle changes they made that elevated the overall experience. They would bring out a dessert cart filled with various items so the guests could have their pick. They moved the payment till out of sight and even left a full bottle of cognac at the end with the check. They constantly adjusted the lighting and the music to match the time, the mood, and the noise in the room. None of this was random, it was deliberate. It was designed to engineer specific emotions when you were with them. In customer success, we can do the same. Remember when I said that the guests could pick their dessert from the cart? Well, they did this because the menus given to the guests for desserts made them hesitate a bit and they didn't want to wait longer to get another dish. The cart made the desserts immediate, effortless, and tempting. So they brought out a full tray of ready to eat treats, letting the guests pick something that they like and get it immediately. The way I translate this in customer success is we shouldn't be waiting for QBRs to show value. Instead, deliver quick, visible wins early and often through progress snapshots, mini success stories, in app celebrations, 10-minute value check ins, before and after visuals that show real momentum, and keep reminding clients that they're getting value from your product. The next point, at the restaurant, the author made a conscious choice to hide the till and also leave a full bottle of cognac with the check at the end of the meal. The goal, well, is to make the night feel special and not like a cold transaction, but a warm, thoughtful closing note where the guests could fill each one's glasses until the bottle was empty. I feel this is how we should approach renewals. Customers shouldn't feel like it's a routine contract discussion. It should be a moment of celebration and recognition of everything that we've accomplished together, a natural continuation of the journey tied to a client's success and future goals. The third point that I mentioned was the one that really stood out to me: the fact that they constantly adjusted the lighting and music to match the vibe in the room. The first thing that I could think of was how customer success teams adjust the frequency and tone of touch points based on a customer's health score or engagement level. You have a healthy customer, you celebrate the wins, talk about the roadmap, and upsell. But if a customer is at risk, you try to reduce friction, you provide more focused support, you put them on a recovery plan, you show more empathy. But it doesn't have to stop there. You can take it a step further and have in-app messaging that changes based on usage patterns. You can provide tailored tips, guides, and nudges in real time based on what features they're using or neglecting. For example, if a user hasn't touched a core feature in 30 days, surface a short video or invite them to a mini training. Another idea could be to do with the success plans. We need to make them flexible, and as you know, the success plans need to be a living document that evolves. And as the customer's business shifts, you can also adjust your strategy, just like how the restaurant would be changing the lighting as the night progressed. Lastly, this is an idea that I still haven't completely figured out, and it's to use sentiment analysis to change the tone of outreach automatically. So basically, you would be monitoring support tickets, NPS comments, or call transcripts. And if the sentiment is negative, you would adjust the automated outreach to be more softer, more helpful, less salesy. Or it's almost like lowering the music when people are starting to talk louder to one another. But to be clear, I'm not saying that you should implement everything that I've shared so far. Instead, do few things, but do them really well with care, timing, and meaning. And this is a powerful idea that the author emphasizes near the end of the book. Next, I want to talk to you about a story that the author shares about Rouse, a legendary New York restaurant that didn't use traditional menus. Instead of reading a list of options, a server would sit down with you and have a conversation. You didn't hear about the pastas until you picked the antipasti. You didn't get to hear about the meat options until you chose the pasta. Now, this is what was different. It wasn't chaotic, it was actually intentional, and it created structure without rigidity. The author immediately falls in love with this idea and then goes back to his restaurant, 11 Madison Park, and then decides, well, no more menus. And at first, as you might guess, his partner Daniel and the kitchen staff were 100% not on board with this. Well, that was because they had to do most of the heavy lifting. Still, they reached a compromise, and instead of full menus, they listed dishes only by their principal ingredient. So, on a given night, a guest might hear, "Tonight we've got beef, duck, lobster, or cauliflower." And here's where it gets interesting: the guests controlled the what, and the chefs controlled how it was prepared. Now, that's not chaos. That's still structured freedom in a consistent, scalable experience that feels personal. Now, contrast that with what happens when we want to offer customizations to customers in SaaS. We either overwhelm the customer with a bloated feature menu, or we say yes to everything and build a Frankenstein of a solution to just chase renewals. Both approaches fail. Why? Well, because there's a lack of intentional constraint, but there's a better model. Modularize the journey, break the product down into building blocks. Let the customers pick what they want to implement. And to be honest, this is not a new idea. Enterprise software companies have been doing this for years. To start with, you can break down customer success into its repeatable components. You have onboarding, the reviews, the training, and the integrations. You can then compose them differently for different needs. So next, you let the customers choose what outcomes they care about, and then you define how those journeys unfold with proven playbooks and clear decision trees. Lastly, work with your product team to codify the top 20% of customizations that drive 80% of the requests. After that, use the voice of the customer process that we just discussed to evaluate and prioritize other requests properly so you can then take them back to your product team to collaborate on. In short, let your customers pick the ingredient, but you own the preparation. Now let's talk about the trap that I mentioned earlier, the one that kills scalability, and that's uncontrolled customization. In a restaurant, if the duck's not on the menu, you don't ask for it. But in SaaS, customers ask for the duck all the time. Can we add this feature? Why don't you support X integration? Can we customize Y for our team? All of these requests aren't inherently bad, and they often come from customers who are engaged, invested, and want more from your product. And that's the good news. But here's the trap: every yes has a hidden cost. Say yes too fast, and you look too helpful, but then tomorrow you've trained your customers to expect a yes again. And then your team becomes more of a concierge service. I hope I pronounced that right. Instead of being a strategic partner. And this is the moment of truth in customer success. And here's the mindset that you need to shift. Don't be the waiter who runs into the kitchen to ask the chef to make the duck from scratch. Be the guide who shows the customer how the chicken actually solves their problem way better than they realized. So what do you do when a customer asks for a customization or a new request? Well, first you validate the why. Is it a real blocker or is it just a preference? Next, you evaluate the alignment. Does this request support the core use cases, or is it just a one-off? Or maybe you already have a feature that the customer isn't aware of that satisfies their request. I use a 4-step framework to uncover the true needs of a customer. I call this CHAI, yes, T, and it has basically 4 components. That's CHAI, where the C stands for challenge, H stands for handling, A stands for aspiration, and I stands for if. So the first question is the challenge. What challenge or problem are you trying to solve with this feature? This gets to the heart of the pain that the customer is having that's actually driving the request. Next, I ask, how are you handling this today? That's for H. Now, this allows us to explore the current workarounds or processes that they have and it also helps us identify gaps or overlaps. Next, we want to know their aspirations. So, what specific outcomes or improvements are you hoping to achieve? This helps them clarify the desired result or their definition of success. And the last one, if we could achieve the same result using a different part of the product or a different feature of the product, would you be open to it? This lets them open up to an alternative solution that may already exist. Once you've got that down, and if you still think that you need a custom feature, the next part that you need to look at is checking the architecture and scalability. It sounds technical, but basically what you're looking for is, can the request be turned into a template or can it be reused across multiple customer segments? Next, you want to consider your product roadmap. Is this new feature going to add leverage or is it going to introduce technical debt? Saying no to protect your product is completely fine, because if you say yes blindly, you risk creating chaos for your roadmap. You end up with bloated user experiences or UIs, and you have broken upgrade paths. Furthermore, there's poor onboarding for future customers, and all of this can cause internal fatigue for both developers and CSMs. Both of y'all are going to get burnt out. Customer success isn't about agreement, it's about alignment. Helping customers succeed with what you've already mastered can really go a long way. And when you say no, do it with clarity and conviction, not an apology. Sometimes the best way to delight customers is not to give them the duck, but help them fall in love with the chicken that you've already perfected. All right, time to pack some leadership gold, and this book really delivers when it comes to team dynamics. And here are a few key takeaways that really stuck with me. A leader's responsibility is to identify the strengths of the people on their team, no matter how varied those strengths might be. In customer success, not everyone is built for every task. Some are really good at onboarding, others love data, some shine with renewals or community. Your job as a leader is to spot where they're strong and allow them to flourish in that area. Promote before they're ready. If someone shows potential, don't wait until they're fully baked. Give them a slice of ownership. Maybe one customer, one process, one playbook. Small stakes plus big accountability will be a catalyst for real cultural shift. And this next point takes me back. It was one of the first leadership tips I ever heard, and it's one that I keep coming back to. The first time someone brings you an idea, listen closely, because how you handle it will dictate how they choose to contribute in the future. Innovation in customer success doesn't just trickle down from leadership, it can also bubble up from the customer success managers, the ones talking to customers every single day. If you manage a team at any capacity, one of the smartest things that you can do is listen to your team. They're not just executing, they're spotting trends, they're hearing number of pain points, and they're also connecting the dots. In most cases, sometimes they can explain the customer's needs better than the customer can. Now that's gold, and as a leader, it's your job to mine it. You can also structure and prioritize the suggestions that the customer success managers are coming up with, again, using the voice of the customer process that we discussed earlier. But dismiss them the first time, and you'll extinguish a flame that's hard to rekindle. Praise is affirmation, criticism is investment. You can't build a performance culture on compliments alone. You need honest, helpful feedback to be shared with your team, and the team will see that as care, not criticism. Lead with praise, but don't skip out on your standards. Hospitality is a team sport, and being able to ask for help is a display of strength and confidence. One of the fastest ways to kill momentum in a customer success team is to let ego get in the way. As a leader, there's real power in building a team culture where it's safe to say stuff like, I'm overloaded, I need help, I don't know yet. That's not weakness, that's operational awareness. And that's what trust sounds like. And when that's missing, delivery falls apart, morale drops, and your customers start to feel those cracks way before you do. And if you're in customer success and you feel overwhelmed or don't know how to fix it, check out this video. So that's a wrap on my takeaways from Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. We unpacked how thoughtful design and small human moments, both digital or in person, can turn ordinary service into unforgettable experiences. You also learned a new tool to harness customer suggestions, a trap to avoid when customizing, and some leadership insights. Personally, I feel like this is one that I'll keep coming back to year after year, and every read reveals something new. If you like what you heard, drop a comment with your favorite takeaway or what you're going to try first. And if you're still watching, you're the reason why I make these. See you in the next one.